You're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for, you have to be inspired to be propelled to move forward and evolve. Without inspiration, you're just an amoeba going in no specific direction.
That inspiration piece talks to, I think it speaks to the idea of we have less resources in communities, and so you have to be compelled and propelled to put your energy into creating these things that the community needs. You need that inspiration and that drive.
Well, it's passion. You don't do it for money. You don't do it for anything other than a passion for a certain way of living, a certain connection to nature, whatever the reason is that you're there. It has to be passion fueled, or why are you there? Or you can just sit in your house and not do anything. But generally, people in arts and culture and doing nonprofit work or just being in a small town are there because they're passionate about the space, the being, and need to be constantly fueled on that level. Not just nature, but also a friend that just got back from New Zealand said that their towns were really dying and they couldn't figure out what it was. And the two things they did was public restrooms and public art. And they put them all over the small towns. And now it's like this huge tourist boom because people need to go to the bathroom and they need inspiration.
Awesome. Thank you. First of all, what do you value or what draws you to
the people, the community. I think community is actually something that we're really far removed from. And I think in cities we're quite isolated. We don't actually have connections, and that to me is our saving grace in this crazy world, is we are able to be connected in a community. If shit hits the fan, it doesn't matter how well you get along, you're going to look out for each other because you know each other.
Where do you feel like challenges?
Well, economically, we have very, very small markets. We don't have as much income coming in. We have to kind of look at all sorts of different angles, whether it's tourism, industry is a large part of our economy, so then resource extraction. So to keep the economy thriving, to keep it viable to live in our small communities, we tend to have to either find super creative ways or compromise some of our values, such as allowing for resource extraction, because we don't have the market base, because we don't have a big city center to draw from. So any economy operating here is pretty challenged. I'm not challenged by being far from a city. I love being far from a city. Don't care to be near cities, so that's fine. Most policies that govern us are written for large cities, though, and for the global market, not for small-scale markets. So they're quite inhibiting to actual conducting market activity that's good.
What do you feel are some key features built into that you feel, whether it's that you've seen in a rural community that you feel is in a really good place and resilient, or you feel would be a telltale sign?
I was going to say farms at first because I love farms, but actually a vibrant front street. Any town I go through, if the front street has got like the dust balls rolling down it and boards and not very interesting, I'd say it's probably not very vibrant. That's just kind of the front picture. Like a vibrant front street that's active with people and nice view and aesthetically pleasing, I think says a lot about a community.
What do you think would lead to that? What would allow for that?
A viable downtown economy. The economy being robust enough, or at least supported enough by its local residents to support it to be that, and policies and local government that's also supportive of that, taxes that are reasonable and supportive to a downtown core that operates well, and not having big box stores out on the highway. You got a big box store on the highway, there's no reason why you're going to come downtown to buy your food. So I think that's the other factors when you come into a town, its outskirts. I've seen it in the town I grew up in Ontario, where we used to have this really awesome downtown. It was all heritage stone buildings. It was beautiful. And now it's empty, and it's Canadian Tires and Costco's all out in what used to be the farmland. It's ugly, and you end up with this like hole in the middle of town. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm Andy Shadrack. I'm the Director for Area D in the Regional District Central Kootenay. I have a diploma in agriculture So I love rural communities. It was a safe place to raise my daughter. It's a safe place to live. And the relationships in rural communities are much more intimate than they are in urban centres. The suburb of London that I grew up in had 250,000 people in it. And it's like night and day.
So what do you feel are some of the greatest challenges for a rural community?
I think the biggest challenge for British Columbia rural and remote communities is that relative to the size of population in British Columbia, we can constantly diminishing. And so our numbers in the legislature are constantly diminishing. But this region of British Columbia, southeast BC, produces 40% of all the electricity in the province, 40% of all the coal or mining that's done in this province. And the rural communities in this province are still the backbone of the economy. It doesn't matter which way you cut it. As late as a decade ago, you could still produce GDP figures that showed that urban BC was a drain on the economy in terms of the value that it actually produces. A lot of people think an economy should be built around services. I still think it is built around what you create, whether you extract it and make something out of it or create.
So on that topic, what do you feel is the role of arts in a rural community?
Well, there's a mountain culture here. The music, the artistry, the painting, photography, it's all there. That's part of the social fabric of a community. If we don't express ourselves as human beings, then we're bereft of a part of us. Art describes our relationships to each other and to the world around us. You can tell a lot from the local art, whether people are happy, whether they're upset. It's in the art.
On that point, what do you feel are some key features or telltale signs of a healthy and vibrant rural communities?
A healthy and vibrant rural community, in my opinion, is one in which you attract young people and they figure out a way to live here. I'm not saying it's easy to live here. My spouse and I were living in Saskatchewan and I was blacklisted. I couldn't get work in Saskatchewan because of my politics. And we decided to come and live here. It's the best choice I ever made. And they'll have to take me out of my house feet first. I ain't going anywhere.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Aimee.
You're welcome.
Okay, so my name is Cheryl Thomas, and I'm from Clearwater, BC, and also a member of the BC Rural Network Board. What do I value about BC rural communities? Mostly is the camaraderie and the trust that's built up when you get to know your neighbors, and I think a spirit of cooperation more because you kind of understand the rules a lot more. Because we're really very connected with the rules because they're always, sort of in front of us. And so the people, I love the wildlife and all that pure nature that's out around us. I think that we need to be in contact with the earth more than just standing on shoes and on cement. And the ability to be able to buy locally in a more, because you really do know your farmers. Like, we know our farmers in our area, and we know how to connect things. For example, one thing with our local farmers market, we've convinced the local Elks Club to put on a pancake breakfast at the same time. And that's been about 6 years now. And people from all over the world will plan to stay an extra day in our area just so they can take in the pancake breakfast and farmers market. And it's become part of our tourism plan. So, yeah.
And what are some challenges, some of the greatest challenges for rural communities?
Well, sort of the same thing, only the opposite. So it's a long way to get to anywhere. We haven't got very good bus services or train services or anything like that. So we're kind of stuck with having to, either have our own vehicles, and most of them are large truck type things. And so that's the cost of, fuel is really a lot. Then also, because we are there, thinking about who are the official people that we need to talk to and how do we get to those people. Lucky for Facebook and social media and electronical things, but not everybody in rural Canada has those things, and even if they do, they may not know how to use them. And so that, I think, is a pretty big problem. That it's all well and fine to say that Canada is connected by satellite, by those social types of media, but they really aren't, because a lot of older people especially, and farmers and people that have a lot of work to do, they don't have the time to do the social media things. So that getting any sort of outside money to come into your area is a huge challenge, because we tend to go to the town because we need, say, glasses, and there may not be somebody local that does that. So when you go off to the city, then you also maybe buy your groceries or get your new shoes there, and so that money is then leaked right out of the community. So I think money leakage is a big problem. And then when people do come into the community, just the sharing of the knowledge is another thing, because people that have lived there for a long time have the knowledge, but the new folks don't quite know how to approach them, and find that I've heard people say it's so hard to break into rural communities because everybody's in their own little clique. But I don't know what the solution to that is, because it's an individual thing. You have to put yourself out there in order to have people welcome you in. Yeah.
What do you feel are some features or telltale signs of a vibrant and resilient rural community?
Well, definitely I'm excited about this youth coming back into the community. I've been fortunate in that my own grandchildren, for example, have gone away and then moved back, because really the job opportunities are there. You just have to get a little education and come back into the community. So that's a challenge and a wonderful thing. What was the question?
what you feel are some, like, if you went to a community and it was healthy and vibrant, what do you feel are some of the things you would see?
Oh, definitely. I think that a lot of small communities lose their artist's thought. The music, the art, all that isn't just plain work. When people go off to the oil fields, what are they doing? They're working, and then they're leisureling, but they're not necessarily producing art or playing music around a campfire. They're really disconnected. So I think that as communities welcome artisans into their community, that they would be much richer. But I don't know where all those folks are going, probably into the bush or into the city. But I really noticed in our area, we actually dreamed artisans into our area about 10 years ago, and as I talk to the new people that come into town, I go, and so, who are you? Where'd you come from? And what things interest you? And then I get them started talking about their art parts. And we really, in our valley, have attracted a lot of people that are that way. And I think just looking at history, you need that part, not just the business part. The business part's driving me crazy all of the time, because business people just seem to think about the bottom line a lot. They're not really thinking about the collaboration and cooperation that it takes. Whereas that, you know, anyways,
What
that's
role
just.
do you feel that art plays in the rural community?
It's beautiful. It gives people a different sort of everybody's on the same plane with art. It doesn't matter if you're short or tall. It doesn't matter if you're old or young. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you've produced a beautiful piece of art, it's something that can be admired, be it a public piece of art or a, you know, just a private little thing, or maybe a little pine needle basket that you've made to give to your grandmother. And each piece of art is so unique that nobody can say you didn't do that right. So, yeah, I just think it sort of equals the playing. Whereas in, say, business, you might say, oh, do you have a degree in economics, or do you have a degree in something else? And it all seems to be about schooling-based learning rather than just your own personal creativity bubbling out of you. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you so much, Cheryl.
Okay, you're welcome. Phew.
Okay, my name is Dawn Lang, and I'm here as with two hats on today. I'm the school board trustee for school district number 8, and I'm also the branch president for the 5 neighboring school districts, and I'm also the community education and workplace training coordinator for Selkirk College. And what draws me here? So I came from the west end of Vancouver and moved to Meadow Creek over 30 years ago to 260 acres of raw land, so it was a bit of a culture shift. Never regretted it. It just, to me, it's a place for opportunity. It's I got to try out new things that I might not have done in the city. So for me, that's important. And when we started having a family, I really think this is the safest place in the world to raise a family. I mean, they can just ride around on their bikes, and Ben would get lost, and then we'd find him again, and it's all good. Yeah.
So what is it about it here that allows for more opportunity than in the city?
Well, I think because for someone that's entrepreneurial, it's the ability to identify the gaps and then put something in place that will fill that gap, whatever it might be.
And what do you feel are some of the greater challenges for rural communities?
Well, a lot of my job right now is delivering employment training programs. So I spend a lot of time connecting with industry, finding out where the jobs could be, and then designing training to move people into those jobs. So in other areas of the province, it's quite easy to deliver these programs because there are jobs. In this area, it's really challenging. So we're getting quite creative about finding employment opportunities that the employer might not even have thought about. But when they hear that they can get someone that's trained, then they'll start thinking kind of outside the box. So to me, that's a big hurdle, is the lack of jobs kind of simplifies it. I think it's more than that. I think it's economically in our region, we've lost so much, and especially in forestry, that we're just starting to rebuild now. So I'm seeing the opportunities are getting greater now. Yeah.
And what do you feel are some key features or telltale signs of a healthy rural community, or vibrant and resilient?
You know, I'm working closely with Dustin with Project Comeback, and I'm on the Sustainable Economic Development Committee. I'm working with these employment programs, Blade Runners, and different programs like that. I think that the level of interest, if there's a high level of interest, then I see that as a vibrant community, if people are wanting to get involved. And especially if that kind of younger generation, because I'm not that generation, so hopefully I can add different things with my age, and if I can couple that up with the energy and the passion of a younger generation and the curiosity, I think that makes a really winning combination. So that's what I'm looking for in a community, is that interest.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what role do you feel the arts play in a rural community?
I think the arts play a huge role. that wasn't a part of my world so much, raising a family. We were going down the minor hockey road, the golf circuit, the basketball, all of that. So I kind of yearned for it, but it wasn't part of our upbringing or the kids' upbringing so much. But I think that there's a real foundational piece, that the culture of a community, and in this community, it's the arts is so vibrant that it's I think it just provides a diversity that's necessary in a community. So it's part of it. I don't think it's all of it, but I think it's a piece of the whole foundation.
What's the importance of that diversity?
What's the importance of the diversity? We need to have those different perspectives. You need to challenge me on my perspectives, and I need to challenge you on your perspectives. And we all need to be able to do that in an environment that's healthy, that is expected, and that we know that it's an opportunity for growth.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dad. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. Thank you for letting me talk about my kids.
So hi, Jimi Holland, live in Kaslo, British Columbia. What draws me to live in a rural community? Originally, I think I was just a refugee. I was an urban refugee. Maybe I didn't really know what rural life was, but I knew what urban life was. Living here makes me realize that living in rural areas allows for a personal development or a personal potential. The potential of an individual in a rural setting is much more viable and realistic than it is in an urban setting. In an urban setting, you're pretty much just one of the crowd. You know, you're one of the many. In a rural setting, you get this opportunity to actually fulfill your potential in a way that's not necessarily in the urban setting. So there's maybe some kind of human capacity. I mean, we can handle just X number of souls around us. And in a rural setting, if you stand up and you say, I got this great idea, there's actually an opportunity for people around you to go, that's a great idea. And next thing you know, you're involved in some kind of massive, almost ground-shaking sort of endeavor that can come out of being in a rural, where in an urban setting is not quite so likely. There's just way too many other factors that are sort of limiting around the individual to express and realize their individual potential. So for me, living in a rural area, I mean, I watch what happens to my children or my kids or myself or other young people. There's just a certain mindset or mentality for me that comes out of living in a rural community where the possibilities and the individual potential is much higher, or maybe there's no real constructs or barriers around that sort of prevents you from having that opportunity to really excel in something that you really like. So I think that's it for me, probably in a rural setting. Never mind all the obvious things that are much more obvious, like the scenery and the environment. You know, there's all these other wonderful things. But I think at the core, it's just really about being able to have a much less restricted development of your personal potential.
What do you feel are some of the greatest challenges for rural communities?
Challenges? Probably the greatest challenge of living in a rural community is to understand that those challenges are what make your life great. Challenges are only opportunities in disguise.
It's perfect, because other people we talk to would say, you know, it's this being spread out and you know, the challenges that it's like that. The connection of the people and the spread outness is the beauty, and then it's like also the challenge. So that's a perfect statement.
Yeah, no, it's an opportunity. I mean, if you're going to choose to deny yourself money or access to goods or whatever it is that you perceive that's a limiting factor at the same, those are challenging issues. And then when you learn how to cope with that, what happens is you end up with it's an opportunity. You end up with a higher quality of lifestyle out of learning how to accommodate those things. Actually, so there are opportunities.
What do you feel are some key features of a vibrant, healthy, and resilient rural community?
You said it already. You answered the question. It's community. Community. Community is what there's a few, and I'm actually going to be talking about that a little bit today. Community is, there's a few little things you add to that. Number one, there needs to be some sort of defined reference around what your community is. Like we could call right here a community. We could call a hockey club a community. We could call a village a community. So when you have that construct around what community is, and then there's this interaction that happens between the individuals, the second you add those two things together, you have culture, and that culture is what we survive on and what makes us who we are. So that yeah, it's community.
And how do you feel that the definition of a healthy community for you manifests? Like what are some telltale signs of that? You know?
Number one, smiles.
That's perfect. Another one for me is cats coming up to you when you're walking.
Yeah.
I noticed that. Like in Fernwood and other communities, like it's a healthy community when cats just randomly walk up to you and get pet.
It's all trusting. It's all
exactly. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, actually, one more question. What role do you feel that arts play?
Arts. The role of arts in a community?
In a rural community.
In a rural community? It's one of those weird things. Arts is the community. It's well, I mean, it stems from the part of the potential of the individual again, and the expression and the arts and culture and the more practical level you're speaking, like I'm fixing to zoom off into some sort of more metaphysical kind of, fundamental whatever. No, at a level more like a discussion like we're doing right now, arts and culture are the stickum that kind of define what the activity of a community is. So a community, when it develops itself or expresses itself, it does that through the arts, and at the same time, the community probably doesn't exist without that expression. The community would be sort of dry and sterile without that. So they're kind of mutually linked together pretty strongly. But arts and culture are absolutely essential to having a vibrant community. There's no disconnect there, I don't think. And if you live in a place where the arts and cultural aspect of your life is not well developed, then you're going to have a community that will be in strife and in need, and there will be a lot of maladjusted type activities going on, and that people seeking diversion or weirdness going on. But the arts is ultimately what satisfies people's needs and makes them feel connected to their community. It's a way we get to share experiences. What you guys are doing right now, this is art. Tie that binds.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. So my name is Michelle, and I'm from ClearSky Centre, which is a retreat centre between Fort Steele and Fernie. It's in a small place called Bull River. And originally I'm from New Zealand, from a really small town. And when I arrived in Canada, I had a natural affinity with being in a rural place like Bull River. And what I love is having contact with the people who grew up there, who live there, people who care about the land and have connections with stories, with things that they've done or things that they've seen. It's that experiential learning piece. It's that knowing from experience rather than from a book or from school that I find really endearing and something that we lack a lot of in today's society. So that's part of what I love, is being connected to the land, being connected to the people, and working together. There's nothing like asking your neighbors when you can't find a tool, or there's something that you're missing, seeing your neighbor on a walk and, oh, can we borrow this? Everybody's there to help. So there's some sense of cohesion, and I think the thing that pulls it all together for me is connection.
What do you feel are some challenges to the rural community?
Money. Obviously, the economic viability of it. We live in a rural ranching community, and I don't know anybody who can just ranch. They're either working at the pulp mill, or they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And as one of the presenters, Aimee said today, you know, are they crazy or do they have a great passion? And I think everyone I know has a great passion, and they're crazy because it's not sustainable, and physically I don't know how long they can run like that.
And what do you think would be some key features of a healthy and vibrant rural community? If you went to a really healthy rural community, resilient one, what do you feel you would see there?
I'd see families, young people and young children, intergenerational living, whether they're family or just members of the community, but having intergenerational learning and conversations, communication, participation in local events. I love the local food, farmers markets or other events like that. I see in that there's a glimpse of that. There's a lot of people coming together with diverse skills, diverse interests. Not always do they get on, but everybody's coming together for a common cause or for in one place. So it's people coming together, people communicating, people working towards a common goal, in spite of their differences. And it's that the difference and the diversity that actually gives it color for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Just one last question, what do you feel the role of the arts, what role do you feel the arts play in the rural community?
The community nearest where I live, the largest community, has a really amazing theatre community, arts and stage performance. When I first came, I was completely shocked at the quality of it. It's very, very good. So I find from experience from that, it's inspiring. It's giving people the opportunity to think outside of the box and to engage new ideas, so bringing in innovation. And it's that cultural thread or connectivity of being able to bring stories and experiences to everyone. So I feel like it's a real key part of it, and I don't think that we could exist without enriching that more for the community, because we all have stories. It's how do we put them out, how do we share them, and that's what arts gives us the medium to do. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, Michelle.
Thanks.
What do you feel the role of arts in a rural community?
Oh, so important. Inspiration and that spark that. Well, I think so. It's again speaking specifically for the ashram. We're part of a tradition, a lineage that really celebrates knowledge and the creative, and so we recognize that in the cycle of life there's the creative, the destructive, and the preserving elements of any life, of any cycle. So the creative, the arts, represent all of those pieces. Is that they bring forward. I see them bringing forward that inspiration and allowing it then to develop into something, and then how does it come alive and how does it manifest into other people's then inspiration piece, and it bring people together, I think it is really about the spark. Like we have an art walk that's going to be happening down the East Shore, and I think Kaslo has an art walk as well that's happening. And one of the local artists is going to be displaying at the ashram, and his art is incredible. It's very vibrant, and what I'm imagining is people are just going to come in and just somehow see that and want to engage in something, that in conversation with him, with themselves. And that's being sparked by a piece of art. But then there's also the spark that happens when you're out in the woods and you see something incredible and you put two ideas together, and then something generates from that. So, yeah, the forum for inspiration, I think.
Yeah, and it seems like...
My name is Paris Marshall-Smith, and I'm here on behalf of Yashodhara Ashram, which is the community that I live in and my majority of the work that I do. And then I also am part of Community Connections, which is the local services society for the East Shore. So Yashodhara Ashram is located on the east shore of Kootenay Lake. And then I am also part of the steering committee of the CDF, which is the Community Directed Fund, so starting to build up a sense of regional identity for the East Shore as it connects to Creston. And in terms of why I'm drawn to a rural community, I think it's the sense of space and the community factor, which Aimee was talking about. How do we connect as individuals, and in a way that's largely unpretentious, because we're dealing with very real issues. And so we're connecting on how do we get food to each other. And in the most recent example, the ashram experienced a fire last week, and there was an incredible response, of course, from our first responders of the paramedics and the firefighters that came and responded, and who are all volunteer largely. And then in the days subsequent, it's been the community stepping up and saying, this was really a value to us, even though we may not have a direct relationship. It's something that we really value and we appreciate, and how can we support you? So that extended network of support and connection is wonderful.
What do you feel are some challenges for communities?
Probably as well the space, that we're spread over a large area and we're a few people. Kaslo, it's interesting to be here at this particular group and talking about the limitations of Kaslo, which is in my mind so well organized and so developed compared to the East Shore, which is 1/10 of the population and spread out over a larger geographic area. And so we're just trying to really, at that grassroots level, which in some ways is quite freeing, because we have the lesser degree of organization allows for, or we don't have a lot of regulations, and so we don't have a lot of organization, so a lot of it is spontaneous, and it just sort of emerges as people step up. And that's very inspiring and wonderful. And at the same time, there also needs to be the other levels of structure that help support whatever that momentum is creating to move it to the next stage and inform policy. And we have incredible people that are working hard. So I'm speaking very specifically about the East Shore. We have incredible people that are working hard, and there's few of them. So there's a lot of work to be done.
What do you feel are some key features of a healthy and resilient, vibrant rural community?
Well, so thinking again about the example of the fire, one of the things that we've been really working around is resilience at a very practical level of resilience around water, resilience around energy, resilience. What are the practical elements of a resilient community? Do you have enough food in the case of emergency? Do you have enough water, energy? And so we've been defining it as a factor of storage, that a resilient system is measured by how much storage is available to actually access that in a time when that point of distribution is limited. And so we can expand that to everything. A resilient community are the number of people that are able to support and provide the multiple levels of support, from the immediate first responders to the ongoing weeks of support that's needed. Do we have enough water to access if we need to? Do we have enough food? And when those systems become challenged, then how do we diversify and provide redundancy so that we can access them in different ways, creative ways?
So thank you so much.
Thank you.